If there's something I dislike, it is labels. I do not like being labeled by society or by anyone. And that was why I thought that today I should talk about the impact of labels on perception and self-esteem. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Other Side podcast with Annabelle Kemi. It's good to have you here with me. So today, let's talk labels. Labels are omnipresent features in our daily interactions. From the categories we use to describe people to the tags we apply to ourselves, labels can be both convenient and damaging. While they simplify communication and aid in categorization, they could also have profound effects on people's self-esteem and perception of other people. Understanding the dangers of labels and learning how to rise above them is crucial for personal growth and healthy relationships. So, what exactly are labels? Labels are kind of shorthand descriptors we use to classify individuals, groups, or even ourselves. They could be explicit, such as introvert, extrovert, failure, or success. They could also be implicit, such as assumptions based on appearance or behavior. While labels help us navigate social interactions by providing quick references or reference points, they often reduce complex human experiences into simplistic categories. Like in Nigeria, for example, we call fat people horrible, and it sounds very degrading, and we call slim people lekpa. These labels could be used to demean people and oftentimes affect their sense of self. Psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck's research into mindset highlights how labels influence our self-concept and our motivation. According to her, individuals with a fixed mindset believe that abilities and traits are static and unchangeable, largely due to labels they or other people have placed on them. This mindset contrasts with the growth mindset, where individuals view their abilities as improvable. That person who you called an orobo last time could turn out to be a leper tomorrow. So why the labels? Labels can reinforce a static view of ourselves and limit our potential for growth. A person could just conclude that since the whole world has considered me a failure, duh. So what is the psychological impact of labels on people? Labels can have significant psychological impacts in shaping ourselves and how we believe other people perceive us. Here are a few key effects. Self-esteem and self-concepts. Labels affect our self-esteem by reinforcing negative self-concepts. For instance, being labeled as lazy can lead to a decreased sense of self-worth and motivation. Dr. Brené Brown argues that labels like lazy or unmotivated can foster feelings of shame, which undermine self-esteem and hinder personal growth. Also, stereotyping and prejudice. Labels often lead to stereotyping, where individuals are judged based on generalized attributes rather than their unique qualities. This can perpetuate prejudice and discrimination against them. Social psychologist Claude Steele's research on stereotype threats reveals that individuals who are aware of negative stereotypes about their group may experience increased anxiety and perform poorly, thereby fulfilling that stereotype. Also, it leads to identity formation. Labels limit our sense of identity. When we internalize negative labels, we may start to conform to them, constraining our personal growth and our potential. According to Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, identity formation is a crucial stage of human development. Negative labels can hinder this process, leading to an identity shaped by others' perceptions rather than our aspirations. Also, it could affect social relationships. Labels affect the way we interact with other people. Labeling someone as difficult, or untrustworthy can lead to strained relationships and conflict. You could be in a workplace where everybody considers you too difficult simply because you like to do things the right way. Like where I used to work, people would always call you proper thing if you are a stickler for rules. And sometimes it is negatively perceived. When you are called proper thing, it's almost like this person is too rigid or too difficult to work with. These are labels that do not add value to anyone, not the person who is being labeled or the person who is in the labeling. The halo effect, which is a cognitive bias where our overall impression of a person influences our judgments about their specific traits, can cause us to overlook positive qualities in favor of our pre-existing labels. So that thing we feel that person is, that box we have placed that person, determines how we relate to that person. We do not see the potential or the good side of that person. So how do we rise above negative labels? Despite the potential harm labels can cause, there are actually strategies to help you rise above them and reclaim a positive self-image for yourself. If, for example, you've discovered that society has succeeded in labeling you and putting you in a particular box, it'll be nice for you to pay attention to this because it will help you grow out of these labels. First is awareness and reflection. Recognize when labels are being placed on you or others. Do not act or overlook such things. Do not act like you don't hear or you don't see them. Awareness is the first step in overcoming the impact of labels. When people call you lazy, immediately counter it. Or when people say things like, you are too tough, immediately correct them. I am not tough, I am only firm, if that is the case. When people say, like in Nigeria, you too do, that is, you are a stickler for rules or you like to overdo things. If it sounds negative, try as much as possible to counter it. So reflect on how these labels affect your self-perception and interactions. Dr. Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, emphasizes the importance of understanding our cognitive biases, including how labels can influence our judgments and decisions. Secondly, learn to challenge negative labels. Question and challenge the validity of negative labels. Ask yourself if they truly reflect who you are or if they are based on limited perspectives. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT techniques, can be useful here. CBT encourages identifying and disputing irrational thoughts, including those related to negative self-labeling. Because a lot of times, we are the ones doing the labeling to ourselves. We label ourselves as being foodies. Being a foodie is quite good, but sometimes it gets excessive and it affects our health. And we just make excuses for ourselves that we are foodies. I was born this way. Sometimes we label ourselves as being lazy. These are negative labels that become a part of us the more we believe it. Next thing you should do is embrace a growth mindset. Adopt that growth mindset. I always talk about this because it's important. Recognize that your abilities and qualities are not fixed and that you can evolve. You have the ability to grow, to change, to become whoever you want to be. So, develop the growth mindset. Also, reframe your identity. Focus on aspects of yourself that you want to develop and highlight your strengths rather than your weaknesses. By actively shaping your identity around your values and aspirations rather than your external labels, you take control over your self-concept. Alice Walker once said, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. So reframe your self-identity to reflect your inherent power and your potentials rather than those negative self-inflicted labels and those labels society has placed on you. Also, seek support and feedback. Surround yourself with people who see you beyond those labels and can offer supportive and constructive feedback. Positive reinforcement from trusted individuals can help you build a more accurate and affirming self-image. Brené Brown advises that you surround yourself with people who are going to lift you higher. Of course, this is a given. Lastly, practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Acknowledge that everyone has flaws and makes mistakes. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to a friend. Kristin Neff, a leading researcher on self-compassion, suggests that this practice can help counteract the negative effects of self-criticism and labeling. In all, I decided that we discuss labels today because I know that whatever we think of ourselves is what we eventually become. Labels, while seemingly benign, carry significant psychological weight and can impact self-esteem and perception. It can reinforce negative stereotypes, limit our personal growth, and strain social relationships. However, by becoming aware of the impact of labels, challenging negative perceptions, embracing a growth mindset, and practicing self-compassion, we can rise above their constraints and empower our sense of self. As Nelson Mandela once said, it always seems impossible until it's done. By overcoming the limitations imposed by labels, we open ourselves to a world of possibilities and growth. Embrace your complexities, defy reductive categorization, and remember that your true self is far greater than any label can define. What should define you is what you think about yourself and how you see yourself in the future, the better version of yourself. Not those labels that society has placed on you, not those negative self-talks that you have that have succeeded in making you label yourself negatively. So henceforth, go out there and counter every negative label that has been spoken to you. Also, improve your personal labels. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and listening to what I had to say about labels. I hope it will do you a whole lot of good in the future. Next time we shall be discussing mob mentality and cancel culture. I suggest you come around and listen to that. It will do you a whole lot of good. Let's do this again. Bye for now.